Wrestling Guy. With your hosts, the Hall of Fame referee, JHawk, the not-so-mysterious benefactor, Jgold, and the legendary Charly Butters.
Hey, everybody, I'm Butters.
Jgold.
JHawk.
And we're IW Guide. If the intro didn't tell you, well, here we are again.
If you got tired of bothering us on Twitter, here we are again. You rotten motherfuckers.
Has not stopped us.
It will not stop us. Hell no. So, what do we got today, Butters? What do you got for us?
We got a ton of IW Guide title news, guys. It's been silent for 6 months, but we got some news. So let's, I guess, start off with that.
I'm here to regretfully inform the IW Guide listeners and Butters that I have to relinquish the IW Guide Heavyweight Championship due to scheduling conflicts, which I don't think it's fair for me not to be able to defend this championship. So, with some breaking news, at Neo Pro, Sydney Von England and Mikey Montgomery will now be wrestling for this championship.
I'll take that. Pedro on the track.
Okay, I want it on the record, Shelby Wilder. It's not officially the IW Guide champion.
And the best part about that is I saw a little rough cut and Butters was running down the street trying to catch him, and that was awesome as well. But yeah, I can't. That's great. I'm really happy. Derek he's a real man. He went ahead and relinquished the belt due to other obligations and injuries and whatever else there's going on in this world. And you know what? He's handing off. It's going to be a hell of a match.
So I felt really bad, like our title, like just getting vacated and never getting defended. But then I looked at the history of the IWGP title, and the first ever champion vacated it as well after several months. So it's in good hands. Like the first three champions could totally vacate the belt after not defending it or defending it once. And we'd still be on track with the IWGP championship. So I think we're still in good hands, I think, so far.
Now, in fairness, though, the first few IWGP champions won a tournament and it wasn't meant to be defended.
JHawk, why do you gotta fucking piss on my leg when I'm trying to be fucking positive? You son of a bitch.
It's still a good comparison, though, because Derek Dillinger, Hulk Hogan. Now we got either Mike or Cindy and Antonio Inoki. It's still a good comparison.
Wait, Hulk Hogan had our title also? You said Derek Dillinger and Hulk Hogan. It's like, wait a minute, when did that happen?
IWGP title, you kind of a...
Right. Forgot about that. Well, shit, that's at Neo Pro, baby.
So yeah, neoprotix.com, get your tickets. I think ringside is sold out now, but there's still plenty of tickets available. It is in Salem, Ohio, this Friday, tomorrow, from when you listen to this. It's going to be awesome. Mikey versus Sid was going to be awesome anyway. Now it's for the belt.
Now somebody has to find Shelby and get the belt back. Pedro, if you're listening.
I messaged Shelby and told him that Pedro was going to be at the show. So he's convinced. I'm sure he'll show up if he thinks Pedro's going to be there. So, well, I'm kind of figuring out how to handle Shelby. I think I got it figured out.
You have to like wrangle him in. It's like trying to get cats into a bathtub.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. So speaking of bathtubs and whatnot, you went to Unsanctioned Pro this weekend, didn't you?
I did. It's in this tiny little venue, like Ace of Cups or something like that.
What town is that in?
In Columbus.
Okay.
And it's like literally like as we were driving onto the street that it's all on, there's like the it's like a college. It's like all college like area. Like there's tons of college people. So like totally like the venue was pretty full. The way the ring's set up, it's super weird, but it fits for the way it is. It's interesting. Shelby actually told us a story that the one time he wrestled there like a few months ago, he went to do his springboard cutter and almost hit his head off the stage thing and would have knocked himself out cold. Thank God that didn't happen.
Another injury to Shelby that he doesn't need. Jeez.
Yeah, but I was there to try to find out what Bufa meant.
Did you find out?
I did not find out, man. Like
He didn't even hang around?
I had to go out back and get the belt off Derek. So I missed my chance to meet him and find out what it meant. So but I did see him wrestle and it was very good. He had a really good match. Really enjoyed it. Derek was in a 6-man tag and I didn't get the story that was going on behind it, but fans seemed to enjoy it. There was a couple decent matches, so
Who else was on that card that night?
Vic Weiss was on there.
Oh, good.
A lot of the students had matches on there, so it was good to see the students do their thing. That's mainly when I came out to support them, and there's a lot of students that they apparently Unsanctioned rented AIW's ring, so it was like, I mean, a who's who of students that were there. Cool Ass Andy was there, so saw him. Tyler Jordan was there. Lots of guys were there, so just chatted it up with all them. Did run into Sydney. He is very excited for his title match. He is very convinced that he'll easily defeat Mikey for the belt, so we'll see. He took a brutal chair shot and then he fell out of the ring head first backwards. And I thought he landed on the top of his head, which he may have. And I was like, I'm never going to a show that has people that I've booked for a future match on it ever again, because now it's just a curse. Because the last time I did that, Shelby got hurt, Ziggy got hurt, and this time it looked like Sydney got hurt, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I must be bad luck for them. So
the card is going to change. That is, you have to remember that.
I was very worried. You
can't bubble wrap your talent, Butters. You got to let them spread their wings and get their reps in and whatnot.
But I went with Will from Gorilla Press Clothing. He actually invited me a couple days before. He was like, hey, do you want to go? I was like, I don't really want to travel 3 hours for that show. And he's like, come on, I'll buy your ticket. I was like, all right, fine. You buy the ticket. I'll buy us dinner. So we went to this place called BBQ Korean. It's BBQ chicken, but it's a Korean fried chicken place. I went to one. It's a franchise. So we went to one in Dallas when I was there seeing Zach. And this one was pretty good. I got us a couple of the flavors. My grandma really liked my leftovers. I cooked them for her today. She really enjoyed them. But we got 3 different flavors and the cheese fries, and it was all amazing again. So I was really happy that I could have that before we went to the show. So
that's great. That's
but you went to Comic Con, so tell me all about New York Comic Con. I saw some videos of cosplayers.
There's some so the best part is I've lived in New York my whole life, and that day now the guys who try to sell you CDs, and then you take a CD and no, you got to pay for it, and you're like, I didn't want this in the first. Well, now they're moving it to postcards, and QR codes. So the guy comes to me, he's like, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, this guy's trying to size me up. I'm like, right here. I'm like, I'm from the city. You're not going to get me on this. He's like, well, he goes, take my music. He gives me this note card. I go, I go one day. And he goes, no, I take tips. I go, I'm not paying you for this. And I throw it back. And I'm like, come on, Harper. And I'm like, we're just running past these guys. There was 100 of them. It's gotten bad to the point where the guys are doing squeegee men are back and the stupid CD sellers and all that shit. But anyway, when we got in there,
the mayor's a crook, so wouldn't expect all the crazies to come out of the woodwork when he's going to jail. So
right, it's like Untouchables. You have Al Capone running the city at this point. But so we go inside, and they had a McDonald's claw machine that if you waited online and downloaded the app, you got a chance to pull out a chicken Big Mac and a bunch of Grimace and Hamburglar stuffed animals and stuff. So I didn't want to wait on that shit. So we ended up going inside. There was a lot of cool sets, but I'm gonna say this year I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh and Dragon Ball and a few others are really starting to take over the conventions. It's way less pop culture than it used to be. I feel there was a tent for a whole setup for Dexter, because I guess that's coming back. There was Headlock Comics and I missed Joe Hendry by one day. It was Danhausen, Mandy Rose, Rikishi, Mick Foley, and Booker T and Charmel. And then out of nowhere, this guy's like, excuse me. And I get pushed by some handler, and he's got Zilla with him. And I'm like, nobody gives a shit about Zilla. Like, I'm not giving that guy $50 for a photo. Like, who gives a shit? But of course, he was pushing people out of the way to get this very famous fella, and to do $50 photos. But on one corner, I met Max Caster. He was at some booth that he didn't have to. It wasn't AEW. He was doing something else, and that was pretty shocking that he was just hanging out. Nobody was around him. Sergeant Slaughter had his own booth where he puts you in the Cobra Clutch if you give him, his money. And then there was like remember the scene in The Wrestler where the guys are sitting in the VFW hall with the fucking colostomy bag and everything? Mm-hmm. And remember they're signing? Well, that's what Hacksaw, Jake Roberts, and Austin St. John from Power Rangers' line looked like. Fucking Jake Roberts had oxygen around his nose, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan just is he's just crazy looking, like, at this point. So they were there doing that. We went home with some earrings and some stickers. I didn't buy that 3D printed WWF Mount Rushmore, which I thought was the stupidest fucking thing. Whoever allowed them to print that, out of control. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, and Andre the Giant.
If Bruno's not on the list, it's not a Mount Rushmore. You've got to put Bruno on it.
Dude, you wouldn't even know it was Bruno, though, on that thing, but that's who you chose to put on your 3D printed Mount Rushmore and sell big fucking, statues 3D printed. It's ridiculous. But Comic Con was a lot of fun. We ate takoyaki. Those are octopus balls. We had stuffed sandwiches and all the crap you can eat, and came home like, a couple $100 lighter. But it's great. Every year it's great. This year they showed Daredevil trailer, like a sneak peek, but I didn't wait for the panel. I don't normally like doing that. I like to go to Artist Alley, walk around. There were some really cool pieces that one day I'll probably get to fill up this room. But yeah, it's always fun. I enjoyed it.
Some Colossus love there.
No, that one dude I took a picture of. Nobody ever. You couldn't even give me a Deadpool version of Colossus, like the Colossus in the movie. Nothing. Nobody gives him any credit at all. And also, there was not one Homelander costume. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. That seemed to be like everyone's favorite nonsense. This year, I saw no boys' costumes. I saw no, what's the show on Prime, the animated one everybody loves? Invincible?
Invincible, yeah.
There were no Invincible costumes. There was a lot of Venom. There was a lot of Deadpool, all different Deadpool variants. My buddy went as Nice Pool. His son went as Dreadpool. It was all hair puns. So he had like hair dryers and shit in his waist, and he had brushes as knives. Then there was the Bob Ross Deadpool, which I thought was awesome. He was walking around. There was a lot of really good Deadpools and Wolverines. A lot of dudes who had no business wearing skin tight shirts to look like Wolverine, but that's, classic wrestling fans as well. But yeah, it's a good time. And I hope one year, I'd love to see people go to it one year with me, because it really is a lot of fun.
There's such a line there about you eating octopus balls that I am not going to catch.
Listen, takoyaki's awesome. I highly recommend, if anybody comes, when you come to New York, look for a takoyaki stand. It's really good. Tomorrow night is my dinner club, by the way. I'm having Afghani food. I've never had Afghani food before, so we'll see what happens.
Shout out to Zach, Andrew, Will, and of course, Patty.
Hey, Patty.
Hey, Patty. Patty, you ever have Afghani food? I'm curious. It's good. So from my understanding, it's a lot of like very Mediterranean, Persian influence, like Iranian type stuff, but I'll let you know tomorrow. Follow the Instagram.
What's on this weekend?
All right, I'll go first. I'll let you do the rest. It's Thursday, so don't forget, tonight is 880 Wrestling Thursday Night Fights on YouTube. Make sure you check that out. I'm covering Friday night, October 25th at 9 p.m. Freelance, Be Careful What You Wish For. And this card's insane. It's from Chicago. The Freelance Championship, Storm Grayson versus Kylie Ray. The Tag Championships, Shane Mercer and Calvin Tankman versus Rico Gonzalez and Dylan McQueen. Freelance Legacy Championship, Coda Hernandez versus Jake Something. Santana versus Sabin Gage. Red Star Medallion Scramble. There's a lot of belts. Dan the Dad versus Shaz McKenzie versus Trevor Outlaw versus Chico Suave versus Cody Lane versus Alfonso Gonzalez. Woo! That's a lot of town, one ring.
Oh.
Darren Corbin versus Devin Main, Monroe, Stone Ambrose, Reagan Lydale, and Robbie Reeves versus Laney Luck, GPA, and Eye Candy Elliott. That's all on Friday night at 9 o'clock.
Nice. I'm going Friday night at 10 o'clock Eastern. Future Star directly presenting Trick, Treat, and Slam from Las Vegas, Nevada. They're doing a Halloween gimmick battle royal. We've got the Billionaire Boys Club in Golden Era against Makeshift Chemistry and Sky High. Light Camera Faction against Bright Skyler and Damien Denier. No Limit Champion Damian Drake against Watson. Bateman against Jada Monroe. Raw Reese and Nino Black against Dante Keene and JKM. Nevada State Champion Matt Vandegrift in action, and much, much more. That is Friday night, October 25th, 10 p.m. Eastern. You watch that on Triller TV Plus if you are so inclined.
Nobody's watching that. You're going to be the only one.
Well, I was going to plug the Greektown show on Saturday, but I cannot find a lineup any place, and I spent like 20 minutes looking for the damn thing. So
I think Derek's on it. That's
he's supposed to be on it. Yeah. Neo Pro Wrestling, Curse of Quaker Hall is Friday, tomorrow. NeoProTix.com. Get your tickets. Come out. I'll be there. Some of our other friends, Stacy, Pam, they'll be there. I didn't invite JHawk because fuck you, JHawk.
Well, wait a minute.
In all honesty, I took my over the top bump on Saturday wrong, and probably shouldn't be working the weekend anyway. So
you took a bump this weekend?
The Halloween Battle Royal. Well, I did my one bump a year.
What'd you wear?
Captain Lou Albano.
You had did you put the rubber band in your cheek?
I had the rubber band in the cheek, rubber band off the ear, rubber band in the goatee.
Look at you. I love it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, when I have changed my opinion on something. We talk about the harder part of the ring, and I think it's probably the ring post, not the corner of the apron. It's the corner of the apron.
So you went up and over, and you hit the apron on the way down?
My ankle hit right on the corner of the apron.
Oh, Jesus.
I limped to the back, and it was like 45 minutes before I could actually get up and get moving. So.
God damn.
Nice.
So I'm going to take the weekend off.
You old bastard. Well, you can take the weekend off. We still got a ticket if you want to go. They'll be at the door. Just tell them that I'll take care of you.
I'll let you know.
Okay. And that'll be available next week, probably, to stream on indiewrestling.us. So I don't know when we'll have the footage to put up. It'll be on our Patreon and stuff like that for a little bit, and then we'll release it to everybody. Also, coming up down the road, AIW Hell on Earth, November 29th, and ETU Dial It Up, December 1st. So keep those in mind for down the road.
That is a busy weekend for me. We're driving out to Ohio on Friday, going to Hell on Earth, and then coming back up Saturday. So Sunday night I can go to ETU Dial It Up. So that is going to be an excellent wrestling weekend.
You're going to be lagged out, man.
Yep. It's all right with me. That's a good weekend.
That on top of already being tired of eating your Thanksgiving turkey the day before.
No, you know what's funny? We don't really do a big Thanksgiving. So what I do is I leave early, like 8 o'clock. I drive to Sam's, and then the two of us drink a little bit. And we fall asleep and head out at like 4:30 in the morning. So I don't even have to do like the whole Thanksgiving thing, which is cool.
Interviewing.
All right, joining us this week is Kristen Ashly. She is a columnist and contributor to the official PWI magazine. She is also a horror fanatic and a proud Mystery Science Theater fan.
Nice.
And if I could pull other stuff from your Twitter bio, you are also Caramel Apple's bitch. So
yes, this is the season where Caramel Apple owns me. So that's where we're at there.
The item. That's not actually a person. I was like, wait a second.
I mean, it could be a person, but no, the item, like the flavor.
Right. Okay,
good. Yeah. A fellow Misty, though, I approve.
Oh, really? It's so crazy.
Love that show. I keep the Mystery Science Theater Pluto channel on when there's nothing else to watch.
Yes.
That's my go-to.
Yes, and it's so funny to find others in the wild because you just think, oh, I'm the only one that watches it, and then and then
Well, I mean,
suddenly someone pops up. Yeah.
the originals were so good. Like I remember just watching that going, this is just, everybody probably said the same thing. This is just me and my friends watching a movie at this point. And it was that show
Right.
was just awesome. The original was just amazing.
I quote it a lot, and that's how you can tell who's your friend or not, is whether or not they get it.
Did they reboot it?
They
Years
did.
ago.
I haven't really watched that one. I follow the guys on Riff Tracks. That's
Okay.
the original guys, but I don't do the new ones. It's hard
That's
to beat
okay.
the old one. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start off here and kind of first welcome you and what I'd love to find out. I mean, before I get into some of like the little minutiae, how did you end up doing this? Like, have you been a sports writer? Are you like, where did this turn into? Like, how did this turn into PWI Women's 250? Like, how did you get into this?
Oh, sure. So I was a sports writer way before writing wrestling. I did fantasy sports. I did baseball. I did football, general stuff. And then one day, so a friend of mine who used to be an editor for Daily DDT, which is the wrestling site, he had already been editing my stuff for football. I was a big Falcons fan, so I was writing stuff for that. And he said, we're looking for more women to write on the site. Are you interested? And I said, sure. Now at that time, I was what you would call a mark. I only watched WWE. I did not get the kayfabe sense of it. I remember really hating Alexa Bliss for some reason. Like, I was a terrible fan. I had no clue. Like, I had just started watching it in 2013. So this was this is a few years after that. It wasn't very long after that. So I did, and that's where I kind of started picking up like the real world of wrestling. And I had done editor-in-chief for Diva Dirt for a little while, and I decided that wasn't really my speed. And so it sort of led to my own website, which is Bell to Bells. And then real life came around, and I just wasn't able to put as much effort into that. And right, like 2020, Kevin McElvaney, who is the editor-in-chief now, had taken it over. And I just thought, like, let me just do, I was going to leave wrestling. Let me just do one Hail Mary. And I tweeted at PWI's account and said, hey, if you're looking for women's wrestling writers, here I am. And not like a minute later, I had gotten a DM. Now, I don't want the audience to think this is how he does it anymore. He's very, very weird with his process. I mean, you could do that, but he DM'd me and said, hey, we were already looking at your stuff. Join us. And the very first thing I did was that women's list of that year. And then I pitched the column, I think the next year or 2022, something like that. And it just went on. And I'm not the only person that writes women's wrestling, but it just made sense to keep me on the committee and to keep a space in PWI, at least with my column, for specifically women's wrestling. So that's where I'm at now.
So how much heat did you get for that first women's 250?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. How much? I got to know.
So it actually was the women's 100, right, when I started. And I didn't get too much heat because most people didn't really know that I was on it. Or I don't know, you guys may be surprised that people don't really read the criteria or who's on the committee. They just, read the list. So I don't think people knew I was even on the committee the first year. But then I got louder and prouder because we had moved it up to 150, and then it became the 250. And then there's a Kaya McKenna on the Indies once said, you're the queen of PWI. And I said, please don't say that, because that's when people started, like, not hate mail, but, tweeting me some heat. Yeah.
So tell me about then. So, and I know the guys, we're all going to have some questions, but a question I really am curious from you. And I mean, you said you've started watching from 2013. So I'm assuming writing these lists and everything, you are exposed to a lot of indie wrestling and a lot of both sides, right? TV wrestling, indie wrestling. So
yes.
Tell me about, like, let's talk a little bit about the evolution of women's wrestling since you've been publishing this. So even since your first one, like, what women have had the biggest impact over the last few years, and why? What do you see right now as far as where it's come from to where it's going?
Like, so I mean, the indies are getting bigger, that's for sure. And just women on the indies period, the 500 obviously is starting to feature more women. People call it a men's list, which really bugs me because it's not. It's an open weight, heavyweight list, which more women are now being they're now, competing for. And so that's a huge change. I think when you look at a lot of the women on the indies today, they're going to say things like, oh, the Bellas were really important to me, or even, the four horsewomen are really important to me. And that's great. But I also think that there's this sort of buildup in the indies itself, and not just in the US, but everywhere, of just, women supporting women. And that brings change in itself. And if you look back when I started until now, it's like night and day. I mean, granted, like Stardom already existed, that sort of stuff. UK wrestling was already full bloom for women, but I didn't know about it. And now, COVID comes around, we get to see more of it. And I think then it just, especially indies, there's this huge boom. It's incredible, frankly. I mean, and that was one of the things with the list, was trying to cover every indie market and every territory. And it's gotten so big. It's really gotten really big.
Do you have a favorite indie right now, or are you allowed to can you be partisan, or like, because people ask me what my favorite indies are, it's AIW and ETU, and that's it. Like, I love, those are my companies, like Creative
Sure.
Pro, but it's a school, but AIW, ETU. So do you have one? If somebody asks you, hey, what are you watching right now? What do you like?
I mean, that's hard. And it depends on the area. Like, if I want to go and see UK women's wrestling, I'm going to go to Pro Wrestling Eve. That's my jam over there, and I know them over there, and they're great. If you're asking over here, I mean, in the US, man, there's so many good ones. Oh, you're really putting me on the spot.
Well,
Do
do you have the streamers? So do you either go to Fight? Do you go to IWTV?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something you feel like you're like, oh, that's my comfort show, I'm going to put that on?
Yeah, well, and so here's the catch: is I really like watching GCW. However, when it comes to strictly women's wrestling, it's maybe not, not the top choice, right? There's not,
Right.
women's title. There's not really, and that's part of the reason. That's the problem too. Like, I love prestige wrestling, no women's title, and you don't see a lot of women fighting for their titles. So, it's hard. It's hard because I feel like overseas and in Japan, it's much easier to say who you're watching as far as women's wrestling. Over here, it's a little harder. But AAW is great. Yeah.
Because you don't get multiple women matches in this country. Like, you just don't get it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a Stardom or a Marigold or whatever else in this country. Right. And I wonder, and I know that it's more expensive. According to promoters we talk to, always say, the women's rates are expensive. It's hard to, justify, that kind of expense a lot of times, even for any wrestler. So, to have women wrestlers who charge a lot, and it's part of the, I don't know, maybe it's just because of how difficult it is to be a women's wrestler and be around, those kind of crowds and things like that. But I wonder if it's ever possible to even get a all women's indie together, like, and run shows. I mean, do you think that there is a possibility of where it could be going, or do you think that it's still stuck where it is now?
I mean, it has before, right? And it didn't, it like, I can't remember
Shimmer
the name.
Existed before.
Shimmer, yes. Yeah. But it didn't, that's one of the problems, is it didn't have a big audience. It also was a situation where the promoter wasn't really willing to, he was still doing tapes, right? He really wasn't with the times as much. So that doesn't help either. I think with the women's rates, part of it might just be travel. There are so little number of matches out there. And I mean, the US is a huge country that they might say, okay, well, I have to go from Philadelphia to, Sacramento. That's got to be part of their rate. I mean, it's not easy to drive either, so I do feel like it could now, especially. And I feel like there's sort of this rising feeling that it could happen. I feel like at any day it might happen, but I've seen it fail. We've seen it fail, and over and over and over again. And I do feel like the individuals who did start it didn't have their sole focus on it. And there is sort of, I mean, you guys know there's a lot of work in going into promoting and building something, and it's not easy when you have other jobs. This sort of becomes a huge liability and a huge investment. So I do think it can work. It's just got to be, done with the right people who are really focused in on it.
So before I hand you over to the guys, I know I'll come back to some questions. I have one question for you that maybe it links up to that. What do you think is going to really determine how successful commercially women's wrestling can be? What is going to be a determination in the end?
Well, in my opinion, always, whether it's men or women, it's the promoter. I feel like, especially with these larger TV promotions, and of course the same when you trickle down, is that it takes investment. There's the sense of certain crowds that, well, you don't want to push women's wrestling because this crowd that they have doesn't like it. But you kind of have to teach your audience. Mm-hmm. So, you have to put the time and effort into booking women's wrestling. Mm. And it sounds so simple. I know that. And it's really not that simple, especially if you're starting somewhere where it hasn't been the case from day one. It's hard to do that. But in my personal opinion, as someone who does not promote, does not own a company, doesn't know the business side of it, it's just booking. It's the booker, it's the promoter. You have to sell these women as athletes first and foremost, but you have to get them in front of the cameras. You have to get them in front of the fans. If you have one women's match, a show, a pay-per-view, whatever, how are you going to build any women's wrestling, as a huge deal in your promotion? Mm-hmm. So it's the booker, in my very limited opinion.
That's good. It's a well-informed opinion.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. JHawk?
Okay, so I'm the quote-unquote journalist of this group. I actually went to school for journalism. I'm hoping to be a wrestling magazine writer, and obviously that didn't work out. Yeah. So a lot of my questions are going to be on the technical side of actually making the list here.
Sure.
I become friends with Bob Smith, who did the first couple of 500. I became friends with Dan Murphy, who did a lot of the 500, and they were doing it by themselves.
Yes, which is crazy. That's insane. like I don't know how you could do that. I mean, that would be anxiety inducing. What if you forget somebody,
I mean, I think you guys run into that anyway. If you forgot somebody.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I remember talking to Dan Murphy about that one time, and talking about sometimes just flat out mixing people. And then, one of the critics was going, well, people just send in their bio can get in that way. And Dan Murphy's like, I can't see everybody. Like, if I don't have a bio, I don't know they exist half the time. And luckily, that is one thing that has changed. If we have all this streaming, like if somebody makes a suggestion and you don't know who they are, you can watch that footage.
Right. Yeah, it was a lot harder. What are you talking about? Like the 70s, 80s? I mean, even the 90s, it's a lot harder. Even with the women's, now it's a lot easier. I imagine back in 2008, finding 50 women to rank might have been hard when you're not maybe buying tapes. But even then, is there a lot of women on those tapes? I couldn't even imagine. I'm on the 500 committee, and I don't get through the whole 500 myself, I'll be honest. I have certain areas that I pay more attention to, like the women. But my Lord, I can't even imagine doing that, even today. Nevertheless, back when we didn't have all these streaming services, that would be insane.
Obviously, quality of competition is one of the criteria. How do you factor in somebody who on the indie who maybe get a couple of shots at an extra, like a enhancement talent on AEW? Does that help their competition rating? Or does the fact that they're generally brought in to lose in 2 or 3 minutes hurt them? Like, how do you factor that in?
So we don't typically, because they're losing, right? The whole point of quality of competition is that they're winning against that competitor. But we do consider it as you have influence, right? So the promotion's noticing you, you're maybe on TV or you're on a taping of ROH or, whatnot. Even WWE for a while, they had squashes. They had people coming in from the indies to get squashed. So it doesn't help with quality of competition because you are losing. And that, of course you are, right? Because you are coming in as a squash. but it does in other areas. It does in visibility, which, and that's from the crowd and from the promotion. Typically, if a promoter is seeing you, and they pull typically those wrestlers from the area they're in. So if they see you, you have importance in that area of indies. So not really a quality of competition, but definitely in other areas for sure.
Okay. Now, one thing I do like is that non-binary athletes do make the list as well. Max the Impaler rated really high this year, like 59, if I'm not mistaken. But man, how does that factor in? And I know that's probably something where you might be getting some unnecessary heat for.
Yeah, well, and it all depends on how they wrestle. So Max will also often be on the 500, and that's because they are wrestling in both women's competition and in open weight, heavyweight, and it's all based on how they wrestle. So Max, tag team over at TJPW, NWA had a women's title. So it depends on where they're being booked. And if you ask Max, and we've asked Max, they don't care. They don't care. They got heat, absolutely. I have never gotten heat for it, but they got heat, and that was a case where they came out and said, I'm a wrestler. I don't care. I'll fight anyone, anytime, and for any title. It does not matter. It's important that they get recognized for their work, whether or not it's in a women's division or not. So they don't care. I've never gotten heat, although I have a corner of the internet where they're very open and non-judgmental, but there is. And you're going to have that whether they are non-binary or not. It does not matter. I get it. Why aren't there men on the women's list? Because they think the 500 is a men's list. So it doesn't matter. You're always going to get those individuals. As long as we are covering, because we consider the list a snapshot in time, as long as we are getting an accurate snapshot of the individuals who are wrestling, it doesn't matter to us. We are open. Kevin has done a really great job of being more open and considering those individuals and making sure that they get included. So yeah, we get heat, but as long as the wrestlers are being ranked where they should be and they don't care, fine by me. It's all that matters.
It still boggles my mind that you keep mentioning that people think of the 500 at the men's list.
Mm-hmm.
Jacqueline was on the 1993 500, like she was in the third ever 500. It's not like it's only within the last couple of years women have been on the thing.
Right. And China too. And there was a long period of time where women were not on it. And so it became the misunderstanding that it was the men's list. And I get it. If you're not following every single list from the start of it, you're not, one or two women, you're not going to get that. You're not going to pick that up. And that's okay. But it's really, and for the longest time, there's no women on it. But now we're getting, with the help of the indies, we're getting women, and TNA, believe it or not, we're getting women who are being used in a way that is what we consider intergender. They'll consider just wrestling. And so there are more women on the list, or non-binary, whatnot. And so I get it. I do get it, but I also get really offended, and maybe too much so. No, it's not a men's list. Like, look at the list. It's clearly not a men's list. And the criteria does not say you have to be a man.
Can I ask you a quick question, JHawk, if you don't mind? How big is, because, we're talking about the list, the criteria. How big is the gap between, let's say, the person you put in at 30 and the person at 100? Even, let's say, on the women's list, how big of a gap is that?
Well, it's a bigger gap on the women's list, obviously, because it's a smaller list. But yeah, see, I like to say that the middle of the list is a lot easier than the top or the bottom. And the bottom of the list, you're really just making sure everyone's on it. And also, there's a couple week gap of when we have to go to print and when we've already made the list. So, or, we had a couple weeks from when the list was made until the end of the evaluation period. So we are constantly checking. So the bottom of the list is really hard, making sure people who are getting in should get in. And then obviously the top of the list is hard for other reasons. But the middle is a little less hard. But 30 to 100 in the women's list is a big difference. And and it's just things like accolade. Maybe the matches aren't that big of a difference because it's women, right? They tend to have the same amount of matches, unless you're Masha Slamovich, where you must have clones, because there's no way you can perform that many matches. Yeah. But it is a pretty big difference in the women's list because it's smaller, and the PWI 500, it's not so big. It's not such a big difference because they have twice as many wrestlers in there.
Right. Sorry, JHawk.
Oh, no, you're fine, Jgold. So, as far as the committee actually ranking them from 1 to 250 or 1 to 500, depending on the list, like you kind of mentioned with the 500, you've got your area of the country that you're focusing on, but when it comes to actually getting them 1 through 500, how does that process happen?
So there's no way that we could all sit in a meeting for a gazillion. I mean, because it would take forever. And in the 500s case, you're really it's down to maybe one match or one little bitty criteria point. So for all 8 of us to sit in meetings for days for the 500, at some point, it's just it doesn't work. So we will typically get through, I know the women's list, we get through at least 200, but the 500, I would say maybe maybe the first 100, 200. And then at that point, depending on the list, so me and Kevin will kind of with the women's list go through it and work on it together, whatever's left. And then we send it out to the committee and say, look this over. Who are we forgetting? Do you think this is in the right? And it goes back and forth. I mean, it's not finalized the second we finish it. I imagine it's the same thing with a 500. I don't go through it after the first couple meetings. We do have 2 meetings for the 500. I don't go through more than that, except for when they send it out. And my main concern, which I've made myself, is the women on the list. That's what I've made the main concern for myself for the 500. I have say in everything, but I've sort of made that my corner because the other individuals on the list are way more knowledgeable about essentially men's wrestling or heavyweight wrestling. So it depends on the list. There are quite a few committee members on the 500 who pay a lot more attention after we've had our calls and our meetings. But as far as the women's, that's where I put my hands in. It's where my hands get dirty.
What month do you guys start preparing?
So I think we started pretty late for the women's list. Kevin had some other things going on. So we started a month before it ended. And the 500, we try to get a month or 2 started, at least 2.
So what month does that start in?
August. So yeah, we usually will do it July. It's in the middle of the summer is when we do the 500 calls, just because it's such a huge list. The women's we can get away with a month before, but even that is tight. And not just because of ranking, it's because of all the writing you have to do. A print deadline is pretty serious and the layouts. Yeah. And so with the women's list, we're on, it's terrible. The deadline was so close that I was writing bios the last second. The layout was already done because we were trying to sneak other people in and it didn't work out. And so the 500 you have to start really early because that's a lot of names. And you need the time to check and check and check. Women's list is not so bad, but we started late. We tried to get over a month, maybe a month and a half. It's hard. You want to keep checking. Yeah,
I bet.
Was there anybody in particular that you were really pushing for to maybe somebody else on the committee push back? And you don't have to name names on the committee for that, but
no, actually, nobody really pushes back. It's pretty nice on the women's committee, at least. Sometimes I wouldn't say the 500 committee is mean, but they get a little more. The individuals on that committee is more they're more strong-headed and strong-willed. The women's, I always come in pushing for my favorite. Stephanie Vaquer was somebody I came in going, she's not in the top 5, I'm out. Which not really, but you come in and you're Warren Hayes last year, his woman was Camille. So we always come in with somebody that we're this person has to be in this space, but we don't get a lot of pushback. This year was really nice. There was The year when it was Shuri versus Bianca Belair, we spent an hour with the top two, just the top two. And it was tedious. At some point, I went, I'm about to throw in the white flag because I was just tired. But that doesn't happen a lot. It really doesn't. And this year, we came in and we all said, Toni Storm, let's move on. Like, it was very easy. We don't get a lot of pushback. No.
I think that was definitely the easiest choice. Like, when I saw it, I was like, well, of course. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody had the year she had. So,
no. And, the top 5 is really, they're great, great women. But number 1, Kevin likes us to come in with an idea of a top 10. And number 1 was just so easy this year. We didn't spend much time on it at all.
Will there ever be an indie number 1 on either one of these lists? Can an indie wrestler ever get to number 1?
Oh yeah, there wasn't there? Who was it? Was it Madison Eagles? Who was the one that was number 1? That was indie. Oof.
Madison Eagles in 2011.
Yeah,
that's a long time
Freedom
ago.
Malika in 2013.
Right. So there have been
smaller list though, not as much, right? Not as much as far as
and there wasn't as much TV wrestling, obviously.
Right.
But I don't think it's that hard. What's weird, and I was thinking about this before this call because I thought, well, there's such a weird definition of indie nowadays because Masha Slamovich does a lot of her work on the indies, but she's signed. Mm-hmm. So what do you consider that? Now, I might consider Masha indie because most of her stuff is indie, but like completely indie, I don't know. That's hard to grasp. And I think she's probably, Suri is pretty much freelancer. That's a different story in Japan, but I don't think it's that hard. I really don't think it's that hard. I think it might come to the UK or Japan. But it's happened before and we had less women's wrestling. So I don't think it couldn't happen. Yeah.
JHawk.
I'm going to go ahead and give Butter a chance to ask a few questions here.
So I'm going to give you a break from all the PWI talk because I think we got through a lot of it, and I want to talk about some horror movies because it's October.
Yes. Yay.
So what have you seen recently that you really enjoyed?
So Trap was, I thought it was fun. I think people give it too much crap, frankly. I don't know if I can swear in here. Of course,
you can curse away. Say whatever the fuck
some
you
of the
want.
evil things I've said to these two guys. Yeah, you can say whatever.
Awesome. Josh Hartnett, he really went from like boy toy to, and then he goes into faculty. I think his range is huge, personally. I just saw Smile 2. Smile 2 was fantastic. I would never go see it by myself in a theater anymore because it's very scary. It's very creepy. The Smile 1 was incredibly creepy, but that was creepy too. I don't know if it's horror, but Beetlejuice, the new Beetlejuice was pretty good. That surprised me. Not as good as the first, obviously, but still very good.
Did you see Longlegs?
Not yet, actually.
That's good. You like that?
Longlegs was, I love Longlegs.
Yeah, Longlegs was awesome.
I'm sure. I went and saw The Watchers.
Yeah,
and that was awful. That is the worst thing I've ever seen.
That was another M. Night Shyamalan mess. Just awful. He tried to... enough with that crap.
He's so hit or miss.
Well, his trailers are better than the movies because as long as you don't know the twist, his trailers rule. You're like, oh, this is going to be the greatest movie ever. Then you show up and you're like, oh, fuck this guy again.
It's not even a twist. It's like they changed the story about 16 different times during the movie.
Yeah.
And you piece it together and you're like, what is this garbage? There's plot holes.
Yeah.
But you think of his stuff like The Visit. I like The Visit. That had a good twist to it. He's very hit and miss, in my opinion. I like The Happening. I know a lot of people don't like The Happening, but I would not go see The Watchers. It's absolutely terrible. Don't rent it. Nothing. It's honestly, I almost walked out of the theater. It was that bad.
I mean, you have to watch the Happening just to see Mark Wahlberg talk to plants, and apologize to them,
right,
for what they've done to them. I mean, that's you have to watch it at least for that.
You know, I don't know if have you ever heard Adam Sandberg do
Yes.
a Mark Wahlberg
where he talks to
impression?
the animals. Yes.
Yes. And when I watch a Mark Wahlberg movie now, I hear Adam Sandberg, and I just start laughing. My fiance hates Mark Wahlberg, and I thought, he's not so bad. But in that movie, he sounds like Adam Sandler doing Mark Wahlberg.
But people didn't learn their lesson when he made The Village, and The Village was such dog shit, and nobody learned their lesson. That's when I was like, you know what? Screw this guy. That is the end of this. The Village is just so disappointing.
It sucked that the twist what it was, because the actors did so well. I thought the acting was fantastic, and the cast is it's so good.
Yeah.
So when the twist came, I went, oh, they wasted their time.
Right. It was the whole thing was a waste of time. Yes.
I hope they got paid.
I watched the new Salem's Lot. That's on. I thought that was really good. That was on Max.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely a little fast in certain parts. Like I wish it could have been like a little mini series or something, but it was really good. And it didn't show a lot. Like it made you kind of like the way they did it. It was just really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Was it better than the original?
So
Probably
to be
not.
100% honest, I don't really remember the original. It's been forever since I've seen it. So
okay.
It was a little more, the original had a little more of that like gritty, late 80s, early 90s, I think it was.
Yeah.
This one was a little bit more, it was all up to date. So like, you're just kind of like, all right, it didn't feel as special as that original one did, but it was a good movie. Butters and I talked about it on our Discord when we were watching it. It was good. It wasn't like, I didn't walk away going, that was bad. It was definitely entertaining.
I want to see it, but I feel like I saw the first one when I was a kid, and when you see the scenes of the kid like floating above the window, you're like, open the window, the master demands it, whatever. You're like, oh, this is so creepy. So I don't know if it's gonna. I'm gonna watch it. I hope it's good. I hope I'm not judging it by the first.
I think it did some cool things for the time. Like the main vampire definitely felt different than the original, but still kept certain characteristics. I thought it was fun.
Good.
Fun little.
Did you like Maxine?
Oh yeah.
I need to hear your opinion on Maxine.
Okay, so I watched X. I watched maybe 10 minutes of Pearl, and I never got back to it. It's on my Netflix list. It's there. I need to watch it.
You gotta go.
That movie was like my favorite movie of whatever was it, the summer it came out. I'm trying to remember what month it was, but I was like, that movie was actually amazing, and the way it was
so
the way it was
good.
plotted and how they incorporated old LA into it and everything else. That movie was awesome. I get
yeah, but Maxine, I love the era that they put it in, and it like felt. They didn't do like, hey guys, look, it's in the this certain era, and like do all those hints to it. They like, it was just enough that it like worked, and like I think of the three of them, that was my favorite, only because I felt like everything in X took forever to get to like the whole point of the like the whole thing. Yeah. And I'm like willing to give the second one to try. Like I some people said they didn't like it. I'm like, I'm gonna give it a try. It could be interesting. Like I'm open to lots of stuff. Like I didn't think I would like Get Out, and I loved it. And I like a lot of those kind of movies. So like I'm into like different stuff. Like I'll watch artsy horror and enjoy it. Like Midsommar was one of my favorite movies when it came out. Yeah. That blew me away.
What was it? What was the Brazilian one that was this, or was it Spanish or Brazilian? The When Evil Lurks, or When Evil, that was the one that was on Shudder.
I didn't get to see that yet, but I heard it was really good.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's awesome. It's violent and gross and all sorts of things. It's really good. Yeah.
See, I'll say, so I've seen Pearl and X. I'll say Maxine's, it's my least favorite. It's my least favorite. And it's still like a B minus movie. It's not horrible. But for Ty West, I felt like it was just, I don't know, like it felt like a closed ending for the plot, but not for her. Like for Maxine, I felt like, what is this? It
definitely
ended,
felt like he didn't know how to end it.
Right.
So and then it became like this giant messy thing at the end, and then he's doing like dream sequences, and I'm like, what is happening here? Like, this movie was so good and it just went right off the rails, but I still really enjoyed all the aspects, like her friend that worked at the video store, like,
Oh yeah, he was
loved
great.
it all.
Yeah.
I was like, this is
Yeah.
perfect. Like, please don't mess this up. And I got to that last little bit and I'm like, I'm gonna forgive
You
it
messed
this
it up.
time. If I watch it a second time, I'm probably gonna get more technical and be more angry about it. But
Yeah.
I thought it was a great watch in the theater. I didn't wait for it to,
Sure.
I saw it. I have
Yeah.
a buddy who's like obsessed with the 3 movies, so we went, and I thought it was a great theater experience. You never know when you're going to see like something that might be just better for TV. It just doesn't matter, but it really
Right.
felt big, and it was a good. I thought it was a good ending to that trilogy.
Yeah. I
what do
also
you
saw Alien and Romulus. Sorry. I also saw Alien and
well,
Romulus
let's talk
in the
about that too,
theater.
because I was going to talk about if you liked found footage, but let's talk about Alien
Oh
Romulus
yeah.
because
Yes. Oh, so good.
it was very good. And I was talking to Danhausen about it, and he told me there was one part that really pissed him off, and it was we literally like read each other's mind because I think everybody hated the one part of it where the line gets spoken, "Get away from her, you bitch," because it made no sense to be thrown in like that other than to be a fan service thing to people that have seen the other movies. It made sense for her to say it to the queen because the queen would be female. How do you know that drone is a female drone? Like, why would you say that? Like, why would you use that term just in general on that? It felt very forced. And I was just like,
It was very forced, but I think it was for us, for who have seen all the movies, I can get why people think like this is so corny. What is this? I actually really liked it. And it was one of those moments where I said it out loud before she said it. I went, "Oh, get away from her, you bitch." And then she said it because you could feel it coming. And there were hints throughout the movie leading back to the original that I liked. I like it, but I can see where people are like, "Ugh, this is horrible." It's, it's just like you think of Wolverine and Deadpool, right? Deadpool, where it's just feeding to fans, and
That's all I wanted.
spots.
It was my favorite movie. I loved it.
Here's
I've
my
seen it
thing.
about
I
100
love the
times.
original Alien. Aliens was awesome. And I'm just like, this takes place in between the two. And I'm like, they gave us some Prometheus stuff at the end. I wasn't even mad about that. I thought that was fine. I thought the monster looked really cool, really different. I was like, oh, what's it going to look like? And it was very cool. That line just really took me out of the movie until that point. I didn't even care about them like with the bad CGI on the robot. I thought that was a big thing I heard everybody talking about before I went and saw it, and I was like, that probably won't bother me. It didn't, other than it looking really crappy until they put it on like the screen, the little screen, and then it looked fine because you couldn't really tell. But that phrase really just kicked it for me. But I love the rest of the movie, and I would absolutely watch it 100 times again because like 0G avoiding acid was one of the coolest things ever.
Okay, I was gonna bring that up. Oh my god, they were really creative because it could have just been like a rehash of every other Alien movie, but they got creative with it, and they really upset me with the chick who was pregnant. And I mean, they could have gone really like, they could have gone very easy, but it was a callback. It was a callback in a lot of ways, and that's okay, I guess. I mean, I would say this is number 2 on my list just because of the creativity and not make it. I mean, listen, I love Aliens. I love the second one because of Bill Paxton. Oh my gosh, I talked about the whole movie, telling him to shut up, like just shut up. But he's so good. He makes the movie. But this is number 2, I think, Romulus in my list for sure.
Really? Out of all of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, number 2.
I have to watch it.
It's my number 3. I think 2 is the superior one of all of them, and like I like that. I like that one was like a haunted house movie, but like this, I felt like there was some really cool new lore, like that they basically picked that alien out of like space after it got sucked out from the first one, and they were able to like harvest everything. Didn't know that their bodies could do that. Makes sense though when you think about it. So that means like that queen could still exist from the second one, technically. I mean,
Yeah.
like there's some crazy stuff that you like that could continue on. Fede Alvarez did amazing with it. I would watch a new trilogy based on these characters. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was really fun. I want to see them try to get to where they're going, and you know,
I think they picked the wrong. Personally, I think the woman who was pregnant, she should have been the main character, if I'm being honest.
oh really?
Her story was way more compelling, and not to say anything bad about the main character, but I felt like she was the better actress, quite frankly. But it was still good. Like, it didn't ruin it or anything. But I want to hear more of her. I'm really sad that she died. I want to hear more of her story. That's what I wanted to go with.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh
Rotten
no!
bastards! What the hell?
Hey, that's your own fault. Of all the movies that you've seen, you didn't see that one, but you're seeing like all these terrible films. You talk about every week how you saw this new horrible film. You haven't seen Romulus, and it's on streaming now.
It just got to streaming, so it'll be this week, definitely.
Gosh,
Ooh.
it's your own fault. I'm going to ruin it for you more.
Look, if you've seen any alien movie, you know there's only one or two people that actually survive. So
Yeah,
it shouldn't be that big of a
No, I'm more
surprise
messing with you. Yeah. I
The
get the
X-ray
whole
machine
thing.
too that lights them up. That was a genius idea, because even though they gave it away in the trailer, I still loved it. I was like, that is so cool. Like one of the coolest things I've seen, like in that for that franchise. It just makes sense, and it just worked.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to talk about found footage horror. How do you like that? Is it?
Oh,
Do you like it? Do you hate it?
I love found footage. Oh my gosh. I actually am one of those people that has a VCR and a DVD player. So I have a ton of DVDs and VHSs, and I would gather probably half of my horror DVDs are found footage. I love it. It hits different.
I went through and like bought all the VHS series, because that, like, the first one just really felt different than anything I had seen for the longest time. Plus, I really like anthology films, like Body Bags and Creep Show, and like those are like some of my favorite things, like that bring me back to like watching Tales from the Crypt weekly on Fox as a child. Like that kind of like anthology stuff is really great. And then to add the found footage to it, like you don't get any answers to anything a lot of the time, and it's like this quick like 20-minute thing, and it's like so crazy. And the newest VHS Beyond, like they did the craziest sequence I've ever seen. Like they started off in an airplane, and an alien attacks the airplane, and then they're free falling, and then they're in an orchard, and it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier. And it was so good. Oh man.
Yes. I watch Beyond. So me and my fiance, we have date nights, even though he lives in Canada. And so it usually involves a movie. And we watched this, and I didn't know anything about it before starting it. And then I'm looking at, the directors, and I'm like, Justin Long. What do you mean Justin Long is directing it? And it's the Fur Babies thing. And I'm like, this is so good. And it's also very Justin Long. I'm not surprised at all. And that one, I want a whole movie out of this. I want an entire movie out of this. And the same thing with Kate Siegel and Mike Flanagan. The bottom, the stowaway one. Like, I want a whole movie from this. The VHSs, they're always really, like, the first one, I love the first one. There are some in there that are not good. But like, the viral one, I did not like that at all. But this one really like sealed the deal as far as VHS as one of my favorite, anthologies.
Listen, I'll tell you, I am old enough to have been in 1999. My friend brought a screener's copy of the Blair Witch Project to his house, and we watched that. And I thought it was real, because he never told me it was a screener's copy. That's how far back I go. And I got to be honest, you may hate this. I have given up on all found footage. I think it's I don't think it's well done anymore. I think it's too it's too just there. It's there. Everybody knows what's going on. You're going to get a glimpse of something for about 3 seconds. Then it's going to fade to it's sketchy found footage, grime. And then you're going to get a couple more setups into one quick dosage of the villain. Like, it's all too formulaic now for me. It just doesn't work anymore.
Okay. So I may not look this, but I was 13 in 99 and I saw it and I knew it was not real. I mean,
I saw it before it went out. I still thought it was legit, even with the sci-fi special that they did. And I went and saw it at the drive-in, and like I was a kid. I don't know, how old was I in 99? I would have been like,
I was 20. And I was like, what did I just watch?
I was like 12 or 13 at that time, so we're about the same age. I couldn't really tell. Like, you don't know at that point. Like, I was going on the website, like looking at the thing and like seeing all the stuff, and like I watched that, and it kind of turned me off from the whole.
I
thought that was like such a non-ending in that film. But like, I went and watched the one that they did where like the brother went looking for them. That just came out not long ago, and I thought that was a fun twist. That had some fun stuff in it.
What was that called?
It was just called Blair Witch.
Yeah,
it was just another Blair, and it had some fun stuff in it.
The second one was so bad that
because they made it into a regular movie, and then it was
Jeffrey Donovan. I mean, come on, man, you can't recover from that shit. That movie was so dumb and bad at the same time. That ruined everything.
I feel like found footage, there's only a very select few where you can do a second one, like Creep. And now there's a whole nother like Creep cassettes coming out.
Yeah, there's a whole series.
Yeah. And so that felt like weak. But I like with the Blair Witch, like how do you do a second one?
Yep.
Like, oh, let's go find no, come on. We don't, and it's so long after it. Like we get it. Let's move on from that one.
Well, I mean, they did how many Paranormal Activities? I mean, now they're just full-length feature films, with camera shoots. It's not even the same
second one or the third one that had the pool cleaning machine that would jump out at the end.
Yeah.
I was more entertained by that than what was going on. And like I hated the dad, and he got like coffee spilled on him, and I was like, good. But then every time it like reset itself back to that pool cleaning machine popping up on the thing. And I was just very amazed by that and was very intrigued by that.
By the time the last one came out, it was like Blair Witch 2. It was just crappy, regular film telling you it's found footage. It just doesn't feel as authentic anymore. That's just
I think the VHS, though, they find really unique ways for it to be like a found footage thing. Like now with the invention of like the glasses or like the weird different like body cam, like it's it's fun to see how they try to make it make sense that they have these things or why they're filming. Okay. And that's what makes it fun to me too, is like what creative way can they come up with? And some of them are like really smart. And like you said, some of them are just really bad, but it's still fun.
Butters, you're going to get me on this one. Last night, I was on TikTok, on food TikTok, but then these movie review TikToks came up, and the guy said to watch this movie, Name Your Demon. It's on Shudder. Oh, no, it's on Tubi. And I watched it, and it's a found footage exorcist movie, and it is fucking dog shit. Let's just be honest. It was so, and this guy's like, it's so scary. There's scenes of people biting their own arms. I'm like, that looks so bad. And it was like an hour and 10 minutes. And I couldn't believe I wasted my evening from like 1 o'clock in the morning till 2:05 watching that junk. So that's the problem.
It's hit or miss. Yes. It's hit or miss. I think my favorite found footage is As Above, So Below. Because it's not just like, oh, I ran into Bigfoot. Although the Willow Creek is very good. But that one I feel like is different. And it's different in that like, it feels really terrible, and you do get to see how they die, and you do get to see the end where but like there's no good ending to it. But I love it. Like that's one of my favorite. And I think it's because the topic is different. It's not just we got lost in the woods, or right.
And there's someone always conveniently bringing a camera into the woods. I never had one friend in the 90s when we went camping bring a camera. Nobody wanted pictures. We didn't bring anything. I saw another one too for you, Chris. You got to tell me if you saw a Host. It's a Zoom.
I love that one. Are you kidding me? I loved it. I just rewatched it actually Saturday. I watched it. It's like considered one of the most scary movies. I don't think that's true. Yeah, I don't think that's true. But it is. I don't know if you've seen Unfriended. Unfriended was garbage. This was a lot better. And I think what made it better was it was made during COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So
no one was together.
I think even to the last detail of the the credits being them scrolling through the meeting attendees. I think that was really fun.
Yeah.
I thought that one was done really well, and that makes sense why you have cameras, right? And why you have phones and
Right. It's got to be done right. Otherwise, I think it's seen better days. But yeah, I those were two movies that I just saw. I saw Host and I saw Name Your Demon. They were just bad found footage, bad, like just not my thing.
So do you think with Art the Clown and the Pilgrim from Thanksgiving, do you think like the slasher's coming back? Do you think that could see a resurgence next?
I don't think the slasher ever, not for me, it ever left. I mean, have you seen Hush? That's really good. It's not like super new, but it's with Kate Siegel and she's deaf.
Oh yeah. I saw that recently. I didn't I at first when I put it on, I was like, I don't even understand how the scenes were good, but I didn't understand how it like came together. You know what I mean? Like she just so happens to be a deaf writer who's having writer's block, and ta-da.
Well, yeah.
Was it. That's the whole thing. Yeah.
But I don't think slashers really stopped for me. Maybe it's because like the Scream franchise, I think has done very well considering. I like slashers, and I'll tell you, I have never seen a Terrifier, nor will I.
Good.
That looks like complete garbage. I like gore. Don't get me wrong, but I like gore when it's done for a reason.
Right.
I hate Eli Roth films. I hate them. Like
torture. What is it called? It's called
Torture porn.
Yeah,
torture porn.
Yeah.
I hate it. That's the one thing that gets me going is Eli Roth films, but I won't watch those because to me that's not. I understand what you call it a slasher, but oh no, I never saw that. I see a couple Eli Roth films and I'm like, why is this guy so well received? He's awful.
I don't get it. Yeah, there isn't very many good ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he got a lot of cred from Hostel because it was such a different idea and it was like a dead time for horror. But like there's a slasher that's like it's not well known, and I don't know like everything behind it as to why it's not like why there wasn't more of them. But there was like a certain crew. A lot of that same crew worked on that Terminator TV series. But it's called Laid to Rest, and the killer wears like this like chrome skull mask, and it has a camera built into it. And it's really fun. I think there's like 2 or 3 of them, and I can't find them anywhere to like, because they were like, I want to say they were direct to DVD back in like the early 2000s, but it has the lady that played Cersei is in it, and like Brian Austin Green and people like that were in like the Terminator series on Fox. They were like all attached to this, and it's really good. I really enjoyed them, and like I feel like they didn't get like a proper ending, and I wish those would come back. But I did enjoy like the new Halloweens, including the third one that everybody hated. I liked it. So
no, the Halloween, no. Like I mean, they were fine, but at some point you're like, what is the story? What is the story? Yeah. And then you just get frustrated. Like, just stop trying to kill him. He's not gonna die. Just leave it alone. Move. Why are you still in that town? Get out of there. Why are you still living there? You know? I mean, I like the movies.
The crazy guy there's no crazy guy that comes back to town after so many years, you know?
Again and again and again and again and again and again. And they just stay there. They just live there, knowing people die all the time. That's fine.
I feel bad. JHawk's up in his little spot up on my screen, and he's got no horror for us.
I know. We don't have to talk the whole time about horror.
Hey, JHawk, we can get back to wrestling. We have a few more minutes. We can get back to wrestling.
I actually want to stick with an entertainment here. Kanchika fellow Misty. I want to know what her favorite Mystery Kind Theater episode is.
Oh man, that is oh my god, what is it called? It's the Canadian one with Rousdower. What is it called? Final Sacrifice. That's a good one. That is my favorite. And what sucks is that you can't find it anywhere because the guy who made it, like he took back the rights, so it's not available to buy anymore. But I mean, you could. There's ways to get it if you know what I mean. But it's so funny because of Rousdower and the kid, and that's my favorite. But there's also like Space Mutiny. That's a good one. just because they're, the beef head and they're just naming off like, beef head chunk or whatever it is. They're just naming him. The movie was pretty good. I tend to like the later series because of that crow, but the movie was really good. Screaming Skull, that one was fun. I don't think I had like a non-favorite, but my favorite would be Final Sacrifice. That one is so good. Oh, the Canadian films are so fun,
Yeah, that's a good one. The movie was the first one I actually got to see, but I didn't have Comedy Central until like 97 or 98. I saw the movie first before I ever saw an episode.
Okay. Yeah, I saw them when they were on Sci-Fi. I was like, 12? And because I was still at my childhood house, and I had a TV in my room, which was huge when you're, in the 90s. And it was, it was one of those old TVs, but Sci-Fi at 10 a.m., it would come on every Saturday at 10 a.m. and I would put a VHS tape in and record it and then watch it throughout the week. And so I didn't see it on Comedy Central. Mine was on Sci-Fi, but yeah, I love Mystery Science Theater 3000 so much. It hits my funny bone the right way. Yeah.
My first season on Sci-Fi was great. He had like Puma Man and Werewolf like back to back. Those are two great ones.
Werewolf is so funny to me because the redhead, because she can't say werewolf properly. It's so good. They're all good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she can't say werewolf properly. The werewolf itself has the weird obsession with milk. That's all over the freaking episode. It's great.
And every night he's changing into this werewolf, which means that every night there is a full moon. Like it's just full moon every night, apparently, which is, that's possible. Yeah. Yep.
Well, I want to try to bring us back a little bit to wrestling before we wrap up. I know I just want to make sure we're staying on brand.
Sure.
Oh,
Well, horror is, we got brands.
Yeah.
We can be multidimensional.
Deathmatch wrestling, horror, it's very similar.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yes, it can be.
How much live wrestling do you go to?
Yeah.
Not a lot, actually, because I live in the middle of bumfuck Wisconsin. So there, you have to travel to Chicago, and
you don't go to Swoggle's company, ACW?
No, I do not.
You're missing out.
Oh yeah, when Zillow was running in Milwaukee, I would go there because they had talk about fantastic women's wrestling. Zillow really put a lot of emphasis on, Kylie Ray, Jordan Grace. They had like some of the, Shotzi before she went to WWE. I mean, they had some of the top women, but they shuttered, and so now you have to go to Chicago. And I gotta tell you, I hate driving to Illinois with all of the traffic, and crossing the border is really weird, and the tolls always throw me off, and I always have to rent a car because my car will never make it. So it's really hard in the middle of Wisconsin to get to any live wrestling, but I do some. It tends to be more indies though.
So let me ask you, you put Toni Storm as number one, right? Mm-hmm. What does she understand that maybe somebody who's at 200 doesn't understand yet? What does she grasp that you think is the number one characteristic for her? Like, what's the X factor for Toni Storm or for anybody who's going to hit that number one, but right now specifically her? What's the X factor?
The X factor is the character Toni Storm, right? It's the gimmick. It's the acting, frankly. And I really love how she brings in, because, right, she's from that period, Mildred Burke period, Wendy Richter, that she brings those names in. I think that's hilarious. Besides the fact that they make her like duotone, which they've sort of stopped doing now, but for a while she was the only thing black and white in the ring, and that was hilarious. She sold that gimmick. I don't know who came up with it. I don't know the behind the scenes on that, but she sold it. And I feel, and I might get hate for this, that with AEW, the women who get themselves over. And it's sort of like a Becky Lynch in WWE, right? Nobody really wanted her to get herself over, and then she did, and then people were mad about it. I don't think Tony Khan's mad about it, but they get themselves over, and Toni did that, and she took what could have been an extremely like corny gimmick and made it work. And she's also a fantastic wrestler. That doesn't hurt either. She's been in Stardom. She, trained in the UK, and she's got like those two places are some of the best places to learn. And so she already has leg up, and she turned what could have been a super boring title reign too and made it fun. Because, she didn't defend a ton. She really didn't. And she didn't wrestle on TV a ton either. But when she did show up, she was, that's how you get over, is taking this gimmick that really could have just bombed and made it like we were all just waiting. She was AEW for me for like an entire year. We're just waiting for it. Yep.
That's awesome.
They said a lot of that was RJ City and her coming up with everything. So like they collabed, and like he makes a lot of sense, like for a lot of the comedy and stuff. And like he's definitely somebody that like that era of television and movies and stuff like really is his wheelhouse. So it made complete sense. And then like just the comedy of it, like I didn't really like it at first, but then it just really grew on me to the point where like that was like something I would absolutely tune in for along with everything else. Like I was like, oh, what's she doing this week with this feud? And like, some of the funny stuff she's done since she's left, even like the promo she did over in Japan about Stan Hansen. I fucking lost it. That was like the funniest thing to me. I kept watching it for like 2 days because it was just so funny.
And I feel like, because I know RJ City, and I do feel like he was leaning towards to the Betty Davis and Joan Crawford more than like the wrestling side of that. But and I always thought, if she is our Joan Crawford, we need a Betty Davis. And I was always kind of disappointed that they didn't bring in the Betty Davis in that sense as that feud, Not that I don't think they could have sold that gimmick on another person at all, but having somebody like Betty Davis and having that rivalry sort of mirror it would have been really fun. I guess in a way it was sort of Mariah May, but Betty Davis was never under Joan Crawford in that sense. So it would have been fun to kind of have that rivalry, but that would take some really, really strong thinking and planning, and I'm not sure that would have sold, frankly, but I would have loved it as somebody who loves the movies of that time. I would have loved it. Yeah.
So what do we got? Anybody else?
I'm tapped on everything. I talked about horror movies. That's what I wanted to talk about with her. So
we've kept her for about an hour. I would like to do like an annual thing if at all possible. I think it's been great.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I'm sorry. I know the listeners aren't going to care. I've had a cold, so if I sound stuffy, the guys didn't get to see me because I am a mess. Nobody wants to see me like this.
They're more upset that how much you like found footage movies.
They can. That's heat that I'll take. Come at me. You can find me on. Come at me. I'll take that heat.
It's only going to be me
that every day.
It's going to be me going. Are you sure this is right? I've been watching this for years. You sure?
I'll take that heat. We can have a Twitter fight. That's fine.
Nice.
So why don't you found footage, and they're mad that Lash Legend made a lift and Kooky and Mare didn't. But
right. Oh, but by the way, did Jocelyn make the list? I didn't see her on. I don't think I saw her on there.
Jocelyn
Navarro.
Oh no.
Oh, I
feel like
pay attention to her down the line, Kristen. She's gonna be big. Yeah.
Wasn't she on the 500? I can't remember.
Good question. I want to say yes, but I'm not. I don't know off the top of my head.
She was on the 500. Then, yeah, I mean that's fine. Yeah. But I wondered about that because I didn't see it in the sheet.
Here's the thing that really bums me out in a way, and I wrote this on the 500 take that I wrote in the magazine was that the problem is that the women who make the 500 either don't make the 250 or they barely get on it. And that's because the women who do get on the 500, they're wrestling intergender. They're wrestling for heavyweight, and that does not count towards a woman's list. So if she just didn't have enough, then that would explain why she wasn't on this list. And the Lash Legend thing, oh my goodness. My editor saw that reply and then saw my tweet about, listen, we're not gods. This thing is already printed. We can't change the list for anyone. He DM'd me and he said, look, she did not have the greatest year, the other woman. So she had
the Japanese wrestler that Ed wanted.
Right. But I'm saying Jocelyn was 208. Josh, you just missed her.
I'm sorry. My bad.
Sorry, there's so many of them on here.
No, yeah, that's my bad. Okay. So we were talking about
on the 500, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she was on the
women's list.
No, she won't. Not on the list I've got. Are you sure?
No,
Oh, it was
no.
last year's?
Must be.
Oh, I knew I didn't see her in there.
Because 208 is Victoria Yuzuki, so no.
Yeah, that's what I got too.
Maybe you're looking at last year?
Must be looking at last year's.
And Jacqueline did not make the 500 either. I've got that up too, and I've.
Oh, boo!
She must have not wrestled a lot then.
Fine.
Kate Navarro made it, but not Jacqueline Navarro.
All right, maybe next year I'll have to DM Kristen and first come in with a hot line about found footage, and then throw in my favorite wrestler.
Oh, okay, I see. No,
if you're going to DM her about that, she's going to include DM. We're not going to be able to do that next year. Be good.
Jocelyn is on my. She's on it. She's on my radar. It's not somebody that I don't know, but she tends to wrestle more with the men, and that's fine. But that's the problem. There's women like Lainey Luck, who I love. Lainey Luck. We are good friends. I want her to be high, but she does a lot of tag, which can mean well for her on the tag list coming up. And she also works with GPA and fights a lot of men. And so then her spot on the women's list sort of falters because of that. And I mean, it's good and bad. Like Cherry Stevens or Delta or Jessica Troy, they're lower on the women's. I mean, Delta did pretty well. They're lower on the women's list because they also fight a lot of men for heavyweight titles. You'll find that a lot in Australian wrestling. But yeah, no, we know about her. Don't get me wrong.
Okay,
we know about her.
Just making sure as we start to get closer to the end here, I'm just getting my shots in, and
I see.
Just want to make sure. Do you have any plugs you want to give us before we wrap up?
Well, I'm sure they'll put my name and my social maybe. So just find me on Twitter, Kristen Ashly. They'll spell it out 'cause it's one of those fun ones. I have, the tag team list is coming out next.
Nice.
And buy the women's issue. I'm at pwi-online.com. Obviously, that's the best way to support me. I've got the next issue, I've got another installment of the W column, my women's wrestling column, and it is on a Canadian wrestler this time. So I try to spread the love around. I think I've done pretty much everywhere but Canada. So we're gonna do that. I just keep track of me on PWI because that's really where I do all of my work. So
excellent.
Spoiler alert: Violence is Forever is going to be number one on the tag team.
You know this?
I'm calling it out.
It's our opinion
as shot
on this show. They are number one.
Team 2KG. What about them? Japan.
No, you're missing
No?
me with that one. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And if you want to actually get the issue with the digital edition, it's available now for $6 or a one-year digital subscription for $10. 8 issue for $10. Come on, should be an no-brainer.
So
they still did that. Yeah.
Such a good, and the physical will be out in about mid-November, beginning on newsstands. So look out for that. And if you have, where's mine? Just go to the website, search. It'll show you where it is. So
nice. JHawk, you got a plug?
Follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at Ref JHawk. I got nothing else going on in the immediate future. No.
I'm Charlie_Butters on Twitter. Neo Pro Wrestling this Friday. Tomorrow, I guess, when this comes out. Mikey Montgomery, Sid Von England for the IW Guide title. It's official. It's happening. I don't know. Shelby might be there. I got to find him and find that belt because who knows what he did with it. But yeah, come out, support Salem, Ohio. It'll be a good time. I think tickets are like $15. So come on out.
All right.
Josh.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Jgold12. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to us. And our Twitter handle at IWGuide1 and the Patreon, patreon.com/IWGuide. Don't forget about the merch store over at Brainbuster Tees and Gorilla Press Apparel. Use the code IWGP24 at checkout when you buy 2 or more items for $20 off your entire order. Listen to our podcast friends at Odds with Wrestling. The Card is Going to Change, the super fantastic podcast. Marks with Mikes and Hayabusa Speed. Check out our other friends, OKCR Creations, the official graphic designer of the Indie Wrestling Guide. Magnum CK's Now That's What I Call Wrestling. Time Capsule Toys. Toy Hio, Rubber City Toys. Big Starks brand. Women's Wrestling Watch of Northeast Ohio. Gorilla Press Apparel. and Smokin' Jay's Barbecue, the best barbecue in Ohio. That's all I got. Kristen, that was great tonight. We appreciate it.
That was quite the plug. I am part of Big Stark's brand. Just want to let you know. The only writer in the brand, so no big deal.
I love it. Uncle Mouse is the man. So
he's so good. I love him. All right. No, thank you for having me.
Sure.
I had a lot of fun.
Butters, you want to sign us off?
Thanks for watching Thanks for listening to the Indie Wrestling Guide. We will talk to you next week with whoever wins the championship match, hopefully making an appearance. I'm going to call it now. I hope that they come on. If they don't, then I'm going to strip them of the belt. So,
that was harsh.
I'll make it quick. Yeah. It'll be two champion for 2 days.
All right. Watch independent wrestling, everyone.
Later.
Don't forget to review and subscribe wherever you listen to us. Find us online at Facebook and Instagram at the Indie Wrestling Guide. And on X or Twitter at IWGuide1.